morning. Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Family Meeting Podcast. We are looking forward to a great conversation today. It's been a busy week, but it's been a lot of fun. Had a great time with our new friends at Bethel Chapel. We had one session Friday, 2 sessions on Saturday, 1 session Sunday morning. Lots of time to connect as well, which is kind of neat about a little bit longer. Usually it's, the events are just 2 days long, and this one was 3, so there was a lot more time in between sessions to get to know people, have some conversations, and left with some really good friends. And so we enjoyed that. And then a couple days later, we were in Columbus, Ohio at Fellowship for the Ministry Leaders Refresh, Calvin Hauser and Tony Luizzo, and just had a great time with that. Just talking about how to prioritize your marriage in the midst of ministry, all the busyness and all that. Mm-hmm. There is a tendency to think, well, because I'm doing this thing for God, then my family will just kind of take care of itself. But without prioritizing your marriage, you really don't have much of a ministry. And so we have watched as ministry marriages have fallen apart because they have been neglected. So that was a great time together. And now we're just a couple days away from our third born, Abigail, going to be graduating Friday night. So just 2 days away. And
graduating high school.
Yep, graduating high school. And then a couple days later, she's going to turn 18, and we'll have 3 adults in the house.
That's
how do you feel about having 3 adult children?
It's weird. It's just very weird.
So,
but I'm loving it.
Yep. So
I really enjoy it.
She graduates May 1st. May 2nd, we have her graduation party, doing slap-atizers.
Yes.
Where I just walk around and slap everybody who shows up.
That's their appetizer.
Yep. So.
Babe.
Yeah.
You have black fuzz all
from
over.
my sweatshirt?
Yeah, it's just all over your forehead. I was not going to say anything, but it's not just one piece. It's multiple. Okay, now look at me. Okay, now it's all gathered right here. Okay, there you go.
That's the issue with shaving your head, is it becomes like Velcro.
Yeah.
And I just shaved it last night, but it becomes like Velcro.
It was hanging out here, and I'm yeah, everybody on YouTube can see that, so I bet
they probably couldn't, but thanks.
I don't know, it was pretty big.
Appreciate you looking out for me, though. So
I'm always here for you.
But yeah, things have been going well. We've been having a really good time, and we're looking forward to the conversation today. I'm going to be talking about having shared financial goals in your marriage.
This will be a good discussion.
So one of the things that we'd love to hear about are, what are your financial goals? What is it that you're hoping to accomplish financially? However small or however large, we encourage you to have those financial goals, and maybe share yours with the group in the comments, and that may give some other people some ideas and some motivation to plan their own. So episode 292 today. That means we're only 8 episodes away from 300 episodes of Family Meeting Podcast. Going to have the whole family on.
Can't wait.
It'll be the last time the whole family's on with everybody with the last name Osterkamp.
That is true.
So we've been using the words last time a lot for Lysandra.
It's so mean.
Tears welling up in her eyes right now thinking about it.
I don't like hearing it's the last time that this is going to happen for our family ever, although that is happening.
It is happening. And so we'll have that, and then going to be changing things up a little bit. The set, the background, all that's going to be changing. So little bit of shift as we move 300 and beyond. We appreciate all of you that have been with us the whole entire ride, and we appreciate those who literally, today's your first day.
Yeah, welcome.
First episode. Welcome to the chaos and the fun that is Family Meeting Podcast, and we're going to jump right into it, okay?
Let's do it.
Gather round, everybody. It's time for a family meeting. The Family Meeting is a show that's all about family relationships. We're the Osterkamps for now. I'm Thomas, and this is my wife. A little bit of tears in her eyes. A little sad. Crying-faced Lysandra.
Hello and welcome to our family. Welcome to episode 292 of the Family Meeting Podcast. On today's episode, we're going to discuss shared financial goals in marriage. Financial unity does not just happen by accident. It happens through intentional conversations and shared direction. So we want to talk about this today. How can you and your spouse get on the same page with some financial goals and achieve them?
Before we jump into that, though, we do want to encourage you to get our latest book, Discipline That Works. We share our 5 C's of discipline, what not to do, and then, of course, how to do it the right way. And so it's a very practical manual on discipline. And no matter where you're at in your parenting journey, no matter, if you've started right away with trying to discipline or you've been kind of putting things off, hey, it's never too late to get started. And whatever you start to do today will definitely benefit you tomorrow. And we've been kind of very happy with hearing back from people about what their thoughts on the book are. And we encourage you to grab your copy today, Amazon.com. Type in Discipline That Works book. And if you put Osterkamp or Lysandra after that, that'll help you find it easiest. But we'd love to hear what you think about it. Also, leave us a review. That'll help us be able to reach more people and impact them. So appreciate your help with that.
All right. So today we are talking about shared financial goals in marriage, how to get on the same page with money. Money is not just a financial issue in marriage, it's a unity issue. And a lot of times this is what we see is we see couples come in, they're having a lot of issues, and many times it is over money. They're not on the same page. One is a spender, one is a saver. One thinks this is reasonable, the other thinks it's completely unreasonable. And it's really hard to be unified on this. So we're going to talk today about the importance of creating shared financial goals where both spouses can get on board with this. And let's also talk about why many couples struggle to get on the same page when it comes to money. So
Babylon Bee put out a meme just not long ago, and we thought it was pretty funny. Mm-hmm. It's a picture of Dave Ramsey, and if you don't know who Dave Ramsey is, just Google his name. He's all about money, and many of you taken Financial Peace University and all of that. Has a radio show that we used to listen to in the car before we got married and then after we got married at the beginning.
Which I do think that it helped us with our finances just to listen to the advice he gave people who called in, because we made a lot of really good financial decisions all along the way. And I think that had something to do with it.
So we don't agree with everything he says, but he has a lot of great things and great principles. We love that his basis is the scripture for many of the things that he teaches. But the meme says Dave Ramsey to stand outside pearly gates and judge people based on how well they budgeted. So based upon that fact, would you get into heaven, or would Dave Ramsey say, back it up, you didn't budget well enough?
Yeah, right.
And it is amazing, though, like as we do marriage counseling, there are a few key issues that a lot of married couples struggle with. Finances are one of those things that can cause a lot of problems in marriage when you aren't on the same page. And, there are so many people that just don't have a plan for what to do with their money.
Right.
On the week to week. And if you don't have that plan, it's really hard to have or accomplish financial goals together. And so it literally starts with the basics of knowing how much money you bring in every month, knowing how much money's going out with your bills and your spending, and telling your money what to do and where to go. So when it comes to that, we love Dave Ramsey and others who kind of give that good financial advice. But, you're talking about creating shared financial goals and why a lot of couples struggle to get on the same page when it comes to money. You've got different spending habits, different priorities, different expectations that can quietly, or in some cases not so quietly, create tension, conflict, and distance. But when couples align financially, they build trust, clarity, and long-term stability. And so Lysandra and I, we are on the same page financially, and but we've not been without our problems. We've talked about this on the past. Like when we first got married, we had almost no money, and I made nearly next to nothing working at a church, $19,000 a year. And I made some decisions to try to take care of us financially that were not the right decisions without Lysandra knowing, and created some problems, some trust issues in our marriage that we had to work through, and we did work through them. And now we're on the same page. We have been on the same page for quite a long time now, 15, 16, 18 years or whatever it was. But yeah, it can be difficult when you're not on the same page.
Very much so. And it's funny because like whenever people talk about money, they get heated pretty fast. Like money is something that just like makes people angry. And it makes me think of the Bible verse, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. There is something about our money that is so deeply attached to our hearts. And God knew that, and that's why he put that in there.
Well, and that's exactly what I was going to say, for those of you, you probably couldn't see on the podcast, but like Lysandra and I have this thing that we don't want to interrupt each other.
It's really annoying to listen to a podcast where the people talk over each other the whole time. Like I will turn off a podcast. I cannot stand that.
So we kind of just lay a hand on each other when we want to say something and have a thought. And as Lysandra was speaking, I was going to share that same verse. We're on the same page financially, right?
Yeah, and I knew that's why you touched my leg.
So you snuck it in there?
No, because I was already I was trying to set myself up to say that verse.
Okay.
And I knew that's what you wanted to say, but I was like, I'm already saying it, so I'm not going to give you the opportunity.
Nice, I appreciate that.
But that little touch to like say, hey, I want to talk means finish your thought, and then I would like a turn, basically.
But you're so right. Like he understands the way that we are created. He understands that for whatever reason, like our stuff and our money and our finances are just so closely aligned with our hearts.
It makes me think about stuff that we have seen in families. So Thomas is a pastor, and he has been for 23 years. And it is crazy because you'll have these families who are like seem really nice and everything, and then the patriarch will die. And all of a sudden there's a house to be sold, there's money to be divvied out, there's life insurance, whatever. And the family turns on each other. Yeah. And they will get they'll just change. They'll become insane over money. And there's just something tied to our heart about money.
But it's such a powerful thing. Understanding that, like where your treasure is, there's your heart is also. And that does a couple of things. First of all, that can help us. It can be a barometer to show us where our heart truly is. So like you can show me your finances and I can show you what's truly valuable to you.
Right.
And we can flop that around. I can show you our finances and where they go, and you can see where our heart is. And we have faithfully from day one in our marriage relationship, really before we got married, combined our finances, and we're giving to the church, and giving to the things of God and the work of God. Mm-hmm. Roughly 20 and 25% every year is what we give.
Right.
But so it's a barometer.
Yeah.
But it also can be a tool to lead your heart where you want it to go. So if you say, I really want my heart to be the things of God, you can take your money and invest it in the things of God, and your heart will follow that. Mm-hmm. And so, if you want to really be invested in your church, you start giving financially to your church, your heart is going to be there in the work that's being done. And so it's such a great and powerful thing to understand. Like I said, it's a barometer to show you where your heart is now, but it can also be a tool to help your heart get to where you want it to be.
Right. So understanding how closely tied your money is to your heart is one of the reasons why couples often struggle with money conversations. Because money isn't just math, it's identity. For many, it's security and it's control. And then you put all those together and it becomes wrapped in this package that is explosive. But people bring different money perspectives from their childhood. All right. Like, for instance, scarcity versus abundance.
Yeah.
If you have somebody who grew up with a scarcity mindset where there was never enough food, there was never enough money to pay bills, we were worried about the power being turned off, maybe we lost our home, maybe our car was repoed, whatever. And that person marries somebody who grew up in a wealthy, comfortable home, there are going to be a lot of issues with money.
So what was kind of your childhood background when it came to money? Like what did you guys have? How did your parents treat it? What were their thoughts on money?
It's funny because I look back and I'm like, we were broke, we were poor, we were scarcity mindset for sure. But in comparison to the world, we were very comfortable. Like it was first world problems, right?
So when you say scarcity mindset, was it just that you didn't have money, or the attitude was we don't have enough money?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Like
just wanted to clarify.
We definitely were like always trying to be really careful with money because it was hard to pay the bills.
Well, and you told the story, for those of you who maybe are listening for the first time, Lysandra told a story a couple of weeks ago about birthday date and not, having to put the dress back.
Yeah, because my birthday present was supposed to be $10 and the outfit was $21 and there was not enough wiggle room to get that.
Yeah, so you think about that, like $11, it was like, no, we can't afford that extra.
Yeah, like it could have overdrafted, I'm assuming. I don't know, like, because it was my parents and I was young, but so that's how I grew up. I grew up thinking, like, I mean, we had WIC checks, government cheese, we had powdered milk.
We had powdered milk too.
Yeah, we drove old beaters, which I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's just what we did. The one thing that my parents but chose to spend money on, two things. One, they always gave to God, and it has benefited them now. Like, well, throughout their lives, it's benefited them. But no matter what, they always gave 10% to God and then offering on top of that. And then the other thing that they always chose to spend money on was vacations. They were going to take us on trips. Now, sometimes that meant camping vacations or bunking with friends and family, but we were going to go places and see things, and we did, and it was awesome.
That's cool. And Lysandra and I have the benefit of kind of a very similar background when it comes to where we came from.
Class level.
Exactly, yeah. So we didn't have a lot of money. We drove basically cars that were given to us most of the time. We went like 10 or 12 years. I forget what it is.
You have to tell the story about your grandma.
10 or 12 years. Yeah, just a second. 10 or 12 years with driving cars that were given to us, and we paid a total of $51 for like 2 or 3 different cars. So one of the cars we got for $1 from Don Kaplan. Good friend of ours, Don Kaplan. We've talked about him and his family in the past. Good family friends of ours. And so he gave us old station wagon of theirs for $1, and we drove it around all over the place. And they used to, I don't know what they have now, but the old cars had like this foam on the ceiling and then like a cloth over it, and the adhesive in between the two kind of went away. And so like the cloth was just kind of hanging down, and then it would get to where the cloth you're sitting there and the cloth is resting on your head. So I think my dad ripped it off or something, and we were driving around, and my dad's mom, she was sitting in the front seat, and she would scratch at the foam and make the foam rain down, and she would just cackle and laugh. And of course my dad would get after her, and my dad was like, we were dropping her off, and she was kind of making fun of the ceiling or whatever, and he goes, "I paid $1 for this car." And she goes, "You paid $1 for this car, and it's only worth 50 cents. It's still my favorite quote of all time to this day. But
I love it. It's great.
So we didn't have a lot of money either. Now we didn't. My parents didn't save and make a priority for trips, but Christmas was a big deal.
Yeah, so you guys had Christmas presents.
My mom would save whatever little bit she could all year long to make sure that we had a good Christmas. So
our Christmas was socks, underwear, gloves, and one special thing.
Yeah,
My special thing was a dress one year.
that's a sad Christmas.
I was really happy about that dress. That thing had the biggest lace collar you've ever seen. I'm so proud of that dress. It was hideous. I look back at the pictures, it's so bad. Anyway, so it does help if you come from the same kind of style of upbringing.
Yeah.
However, Thomas and me, we are very different in that I'm a saver, he's a spender. However, now that we've been married for almost 23 years, we're both kind of coming more to middle ground. I see the value in like having fun, spending money on the kids, getting myself something nice. And he is more a saver than he's ever been.
Well, it's such a weird thing, and I find myself catching myself sometimes like I don't even know who I am, because like I'll go to look at something and be like, that's really not worth the money.
Which you never did that growing up.
Yeah.
Like teenage 20s in that range, you would have never said that. Like if you wanted it, you were going to try to get it. Like if you had enough money, you were going to buy it.
If I had enough money, like if it was enough money on hand, I would buy it and I'd worry about everything else after that.
Right, which is terrifying for
So
somebody
like,
who's like,
I would spend my whole paycheck in the first day or two and then have like 28 days and $5 to somehow eat for the month. So,
but you didn't learn that lesson.
No.
You just were like, yes, this is how I want to live my life.
yeah.
Until I came in and was like, give me the finances. I got this.
Well, it was not a demand. It was mutually agreed upon that this would be best if you handle the finances.
Yes, which is very mature of you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it was a good thing.
But having that same, even though we have kind of the same background, we do have a lot of the same thoughts about money, but still we're very different in a lot of the ways that we view it.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely I would usually rather just save, like typically. But like Thomas has helped me to understand that we need to have a little bit of fun too. So it's been good.
Well, and we're at the best place financially we've ever been. Mm-hmm. But I think we work harder than we've ever worked in our entire lives. So
Definitely.
But you know, when you think about conversations about money, they can quickly turn emotional.
Oh yeah.
Because money does touch fear. You know, whether you're
yeah.
thinking about not having enough. Mm-hmm. You talked about and mentioned power already, and that could be a couple of different things, you know, as far as who decides what we do with money. Mm-hmm. But in some relationships, like money is held over somebody else.
So they can't leave.
So it's like this happens to women a lot where they choose to stay home and want to stay home. And, you know, because one person brings in all the money, they feel like they should have all the say on how it's spent and what you do with it. And it's like, you know, I never felt that way about Lysandra when she chose to stay home, and with the kids, which she did choose to stay home, and I told her before we ever got married, like, if you want to work, great, then that's okay. If you want to stay home, I'll do whatever it takes to make sure that you can stay home. And so she wanted to stay home with the kids, but I always valued that, because you think about how much money I would have to pay to spend to get somebody to watch my 4 kids.
Yeah.
For 8, 10, 12, 14 hours a day, depending on what's going on with my work. So she brought in a lot of money value, but some people don't view it that way. They view it as, I bring in all the money, so I'm the one who should say. Mm-hmm. And values, you know, what matters most and all that. Money adds, you know, stress, you add stress, you add debt or income differences, and even small decisions can feel very loaded.
Yeah. And there is a difference that we want to talk about, because we're talking about trying to be on the same page. We're talking about financial goals. There is a difference between individual versus shared financial goals. The individual goals answer this question: what do I want for my life? It's very self-focused. It's, you know, a team of one.
Yeah.
But shared goals, which is what you should be because you're married, is what do we want our life together to look like? What do we want it to look like? And maybe you're saying, well, we want our life to look like lots of money, lots of accumulation, stuff, travel, buying anything we want, so on and so forth. Is there any room in there where you want your lives to look like an investment in eternity? Just keep that in mind.
So let me ask you this. when we're talking about financial goals, let's just answer the question for us. So I'll have you go first. Like, what do you want our life to look like together? What does that look like financially to you?
First and foremost, I want to be able to make an impact on eternity. So, like, I want to have enough money to give, whether that's missions, church. I always want to support a local church. I believe that is very clear in Scripture that we are all supposed to be doing that if we're followers of Jesus. So supporting a local church and then any kind of missions. But I also want to have enough money to be able to be generous to those in our life. So I want to have enough money to be able to buy my future grandkids presents or take them to Disney World if that's what they like. I really dislike it. Sorry to all of you beautiful Disney fans, but I don't really like to go to the parks. But if that's like, I would love to be able to take my grandkids to meet Mickey Mouse or whatever,
Okay.
So like I want to have enough money to first of all make an impact on eternity, but also to be generous to our family and friends. And then I do want us to have enough money to travel because that's something we both love so much. And I want to see as much of the world as I can before I die as far as creation, right? I'm not as interested in like the touristy things, but I want to see like different parts of the earth and what it looks like and explore it. So that's mine. Okay. You, Thomas, what do you want our life together to look like?
So I also prioritize investing in things that are eternal. So the church, missionaries, things like that. I would like to not have finances be a hindrance to going to any church and helping out with a marriage event or this or that. Mm-hmm. So there's that. I would like to have enough money to be able to help our kids out financially if they need help. Mm-hmm. And I would like to have enough money to make a great spot for our grandkids. So like looking out these windows where we record, I'd like to look out there and see like a pool and a hot tub and stuff like that where the grandkids can come and just have like a week or two whenever and just come and hang out and love to be here.
Grand camp. And a water slide.
Yeah.
We got to have a water slide.
Got to have a water slide for the grandkids.
Yeah,
so
that's going to be cool.
Those are my big things. Travel. I do like to travel and all that, but so that's kind of my thoughts.
We're pretty similar, which is good because
the pool right now is at one of the highest spots
for you.
For me, yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
So we'll have to see what happens. Buy 10,000 copies of Discipline That Works.
Fund our grandchildren's pool.
Yeah. Grandchildren's in quotes. It's going to be like buying our kids a dog and it ends up to be mine.
Right. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. And here's the deal though. Problems arise when couples unintentionally compete with another. So as you can see, Thomas and me are pretty close to similar answers on what we said we want our life to look like financially. But it can get really heated if one spouse prioritizes travel, the other one prioritizes saving and just wealth accumulation. Maybe one wants to give generously and give tithe, and the other says, no, we can't afford that. I don't trust it. And there's going to be a lot of issues in your marriage if these things are have a really far extremes, like if you cannot find a compromise in these.
Yeah. Well, and the truth is a healthy marriage doesn't erase individual desires. Right? We all have our individual desires. Even as Lysandra and I have a lot of similarities in what our financial goals would be for the future, we do have, we might arrange them a little bit differently. I've got different thoughts about what are my absolute priorities versus her absolute priorities. But the goal is to align them under a shared direction. So we're not trying to race you and she's not trying to race me. It's how can we be best aligned going in the same direction? Mm-hmm. Think of it like two lanes merging into one highway. So, some people have a really hard time trying to figure that out.
Mm-hmm. Or they just stay in separate lanes the whole time and you have your money, I have my money. We never connect. But that's, I think, really dangerous. I think that does not promote unity in the marriage.
Well, and bottom line is, it was written in Genesis, Jesus repeated it, that we are to leave father and mother to become one. And it's, once again, money's tied to your heart, right? So if your money's not together, your hearts aren't really fully aligned and connected. And so that would be an issue that I have. But, we're talking about these, two lanes merging. It's, some people can't figure the zipper situation out, where it's like,
Oh, you get so mad in traffic.
yeah, it's just like, how hard is this to figure out? One of you go, and then the next one go, and then one of you go, and the next one go. But the problem happens when people get selfish, right? And they don't want to let anybody in. And the same is true often in marriage relationships when it comes to money. We can get really selfish. And so, thinking about how you can align with each other to go in the same direction. And you may not have everything in the same order. That's okay. But it's like we can agree upon these certain things, like this is the direction we're moving. And then you have some give and take. Like there's some times where it's like, okay, I'm going to give in this area of maybe giving a little bit more to the church than what maybe I feel comfortable with. And then we're going to save a little bit more here instead of spending it on this X, Y, or Z. But you're figuring out, okay, where do I give and take? Where am I going to let you cut in here? And then I'm going to cut in here. But we're still going the same direction.
And if one spouse always gets what they want and one spouse never gets what they want, there is a huge issue. There should be some compromise in money matters in your home. There should be some compromise where it's like you give a little, I give a little. We come to an understanding somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Every time.
But we're talking about, these shared financial goals. And you've got a couple different things here. You've got short-term financial goals. You have long-term financial goals. And so we'll share examples of both just to kind of give you some inspiration, and then you can create your own shared financial goals from there. Spoiler alert, on your family meeting tonight, you're going to be talking about finances. So if you need to brace yourself to get ready.
Yeah. And I think this is going to help a lot of people because we've done marriage counseling before where he said, like, what are your shared financial goals? And they're like, we don't have any. And so giving some examples of what they could be, then the couple was able to work through and be like, oh, okay, I get what you mean now. Yes, we want it. We want that. Yes, we want that. So this will hopefully help you. A short-term shared financial goal, these are going to be ones from 0 to 2 years, okay? So these financial goals are going to focus on stability, clarity, and quick wins that reduce some stress, okay?
Yep.
So a lot of finances can create stress, like when you're late for a payment, you don't know if you can pay off your credit card, so on and so forth. So a financial goal for you and your spouse from 0 to 2 years could be to build an emergency fund. This is really great. We went many years where we wanted an emergency fund and could not do it. We really tried.
It was literally just living paycheck to paycheck. Some weeks we didn't have food. Literally, it was like, okay, God, that prayer where the disciples say, teach us how to pray. And Jesus says, one of the things you should pray is give us this day our daily bread. Like we were literally praying, give us our daily bread.
Right. And I want to share this as a testimony to God's goodness because we did not have grocery money, but we chose to give a tithe check.
Yeah.
Like we understood that giving to the church meant no grocery money, and we did it anyway. And it was awesome to see God provide.
Well, and even now, so we lead a church plant here in Palm Coast, and for those of you that aren't familiar with church plant, it's basically like starting your own business where you don't have a lot of money coming in, and you don't know what you're going to get paid week to week. And so Lysandra and I give on whatever the max paycheck I could possibly receive from the church would be, and we rarely get that back, but we give based upon that. So, and God is always taking care of us. Mm-hmm. Like He's always taking care of us. But we didn't have or especially early on, we didn't have enough money to save 3 to 6 months worth, like for an emergency fund. Like every day was an emergency.
It really was for a long time. So we were so frugal. We barely spent money on anything.
But we do identify with those of you who are struggling right now financially, especially
we've been there.
In this economy. and you're just trying to make everything work and you're trying to pay the bills and keep the lights on and all that kind of stuff, we understand. Okay. But even at this point, like, you may not be ready to take certain steps, but you can have the plan in place.
So maybe this is one of your short-term shared financial goals. Create and stick to a monthly budget. This really should be all of our goals. Every marriage should have this as a goal, to create and stick to a monthly budget. But this is a short-term goal. This is something you can do tonight, okay?
Yeah.
And begin to stick to it. Here's an idea. What about this? Agree on spending categories and limits that reflect both spouses' priorities, okay? So that may be a shared financial goal, that we are going to agree on spending categories. We're going to agree on the limits that we can spend on those. And it's not going to be that one spouse gets everything they want and the other gets nothing. We're going to pick some stuff that everybody can be happy with and enjoy. Here's a great 0 to 2 year financial goal. Pay off high interest debt. You may be having debt from a lot of different directions. And if that's the case, you want to pay off that high interest debt first. And you can do the snowball effect. You can look that up, but it's basically paying off the debt that you can as quickly as possible and then putting that money each month to another debt, and you snowball, because each time you get rid of one debt, you have more money to put to the other debt per month. Maybe your shared financial goal is going to be to pay off all credit cards within 0 to 2 years. Well, how can you do that? You're probably going to have to live on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches,
Well, and that's probably your highest interest debt is coming from your credit card.
Yeah,
so.
And you're going to have to stop going out to eat, and you're going to have to go down to one streaming service. Like, you're going to have to make some cuts in order to do that. But it's a possible thing that you can do. Maybe it's personal loans that you want to pay off, or anything that's draining your finances quickly. You want to get rid of that within 0 to 2 years.
So another thing to do is establish a giving plan. So decide a percentage or amount to give regularly. And so Lysandra and I we agreed upon basically right off the bat, we were going to give 20% of our income. It often ends up being more than that, probably closer to the 25% range or more. But that was what we agreed upon. It's like, whatever we thought the basic thing God was asking, okay, let's double it. And so, you going back to the Old Testament, it was give 10%. So we said, well, let's do 20%. And we have done that
from before day one.
Yep, before day one, and we've never failed to do that. But we're on the same page about that. Like, that's the same kind of priority. You may not be ready for that depending on where you're at. Maybe giving 5% of your income is a big deal. And so you're starting to take that small step, and then my goal is to get to 10% maybe, or 15 or 20 or whatever it is, but we're going to start with a reasonable step for us.
And let me say this, there are a lot of people out there who believe that it gets easier to give 10% when you have more money. It does not. The checks get bigger, right? So if you have more money, 10% is a higher number, right? Which I know that we all understand that. That's math. But it's harder to give a bigger check. It feels like, oh, geez, that's a lot of money I'm just giving away. So don't trick yourself into believing that it's harder now because I don't have any money. It's way easier to give $25 than $2,000.
Yeah.
It's way easier. So just keep that in mind. Like, don't trick yourself into believing it'll get easier later. I'll give later, because God may not trust you with more until you can trust him with what little you have.
Well, and along those lines, Jesus said, if you're faithful in the little things, then you will be faithful in the big things. But he says, if you aren't faithful with the little things, who's going to trust you with the big things? And we all want God to bless us. We all want God to give us money and to do great things for us. And yet, so often we're so stingy with so little. It's like we can't even, give 5%.
No.
And, you think about what 5% looks like. If you make $1,000 a week, that's what, $50?
Yeah.
You can't be generous with $50, but for some reason you think if you're making $2,500 a week, you're going to write a bigger check.
You won't.
It's just not going to happen. And so, but you need to, as a couple, establish what that giving plan looks like. and we encourage you to be as generous as possible, to invest as much as you can in the things of God, and watch and see how he blesses. And
It's true.
It's literally often just like that little boy with his lunch, where God takes whatever little you have and then he multiplies it, and he blesses you in so many great ways.
It's crazy.
And it's
so
not
cool.
like, hey, give God money and he's going to give you money, but often he blesses in a lot of different ways. And the ways that he has provided for us has just been incredible.
Phenomenal.
So, you're talking about deciding on giving. Also, save for specific upcoming needs, whether that's car repair fund, medical expenses, holiday spending, small vacations.
Our Honda Odyssey minivan, that is also my work truck, is coming up on 300,000 miles.
I think right now we're at 281,000.
Yes. So we know, like, it's coming. We are going to have to get another Honda Odyssey minivan. It's the only option. It's the only van out there.
Yeah.
So I know that that's going to be a huge expense. Well, we already have a savings fund going that's going to purchase that new car, because our goal is to not have a car payment ever. So we've got to save that money now. So that's one of our shared financial goals right now.
Yeah. Combine or coordinate finances, and whether that's fully joined together, which we encourage you to do, hybrid, but you're creating a system that feels unified and is not secretive.
Yeah.
Like the finances are widely open and known by both parties. Set some spending boundaries. And that starts with just agreeing on a dollar amount, where purchases require discussion. Like, if we're going to spend more than X, then we're going to sit down and talk about it and make sure we're both on the same page.
Okay, so that's kind of a quick bullet point there, ideas and how to make it happen of some short-term goals. What about long-term shared financial goals? So we're talking 5+ years. This may even put you into retirement years or whatever. So let's talk about 5+ years. These goals are going to reflect your vision for life together, and they're going to require consistency over a long period of time. Maybe this shared financial goal is to buy a home or to pay off your current mortgage. Maybe it's saving for a down payment or working towards full ownership of a home. This could be retirement planning. I want to have X number of dollars in my retirement fund. Maybe it's contributing consistently to 401ks. I can't do that without being like 401k. Right? Wasn't that a line from a show? My 401k.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You don't remember?
Yeah.
Maybe you want to start contributing to an IRA or other investments, right? But these are all long-term goals, 5+ years. These take a lot of planning and consistency. Maybe it's becoming completely debt-free. Now, like, there's debt-free and then there's debt-free. So we're debt-free besides our house, right?
Yeah.
And in Dave Ramsey's world, he calls that debt-free.
Yeah.
But then there's really debt-free.
Yes.
Where you own your home outright and you also have no credit card debt, no car payment, and whatever, no home equity loan, whatever it is.
Which that's where you truly start to build wealth. Yes.
That is where you have complete financial freedom. I would love that is a shared financial goal for us, for sure. And that debt free would be meaning, no student loans, car loans, mortgage, whatever. So you're saying together, what is our 5-year or 5+ years financial goal? Let's think about some of these things. So we've given you some ideas of what they could be. Maybe they're different for you. Maybe your 5-year shared financial plan is the emergency fund.
Yeah.
Maybe you feel like that's going to take 5 years to do. So make that, but think about these things.
Another long-term shared financial goal is the idea of building wealth and investments, whether it's stocks, real estate, other assets that are aligned with your risk tolerance. And I encourage you to find and research and get somebody you trust that you can have these conversations with that know a little bit more about it than you do.
I think that risk comfort or tolerance is definitely something that can be an issue in marriage.
Yeah.
Where like one partner is like, okay, let's just invest in this thing. Let's buy this house. We're going to make it a rental property. It's going to bring in so much money. The other person sees it as a huge risk. This is dangerous. This is not a good idea. And so there can be some real difficulties in how you view comfortable, tolerable risk in finances. So this could be a hot button issue for a couple.
And Lysandra and I are kind of a little bit farther apart on this issue here, where I'm more of a risk taker, and she's basically risk averse. Like, what's the safest possible thing that we can do?
Put it under the mattress.
Well, yeah, and then the house burns down and you've lost
no
everything.
money.
So,
Yeah.
but so that's something to think about. Maybe it's funding your children's future, whatever that looks like. Maybe that's their education, support for early adulthood, or whatever else, helping them, get on their own feet financially and all of that, and start their life. Creating a legacy or generational wealth plan, and talking about estate planning, wills, trust, charitable impact, all that kind of stuff. Maybe it is just supporting your lifestyle dreams, like traveling regularly, like Lysander talking about, starting a business. Maybe you want one spouse to be able to stay home, and so that's part of your plan, is figuring out, okay, how can we replace their income or learn to live without it. Maybe it's early retirement. I'm sick of working. I don't want to work until I'm 65 or 75. My goal is to be able to retire before that. So you have to know what the goal is if you're ever going to hit the mark. Like, you're not going to retire early without some sort of plan to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that you need to be aware of too is that there are short-term financial goals that do connect to the long term. So you think about the things that you have to do in order to make these things happen. You have to have consistent saving habits, and that may be to accomplish a short-term goal, but what that does is it eventually turns into long-term wealth.
Yeah.
If you can regularly have financial check-ins with your spouse, then what you're going to have there is it's going to benefit you with lifelong alignment financially, because you're going to constantly be checking in. And this is what we tell people all the time. Like, you are not the same person you were when you got married, and neither is your spouse. You will continue to change. So checking in this aspect of finances too, like, how comfortable are you with me spending this now? You used to hate it if I spent this. How do you feel about it now? So on and so forth. And if you can live below your means right now, what that is doing is that's setting you up for future freedom.
Yeah.
And so that means making some sacrifices now so that later on you can enjoy life, and it can be so much easier. But you've got to do the hard. And it's hard to sometimes say no to yourself, to say no to your kids or whatever. But one thing that is, I think, a vein throughout all of this is to practice contentment. Whatever you do have, be content with it. And if you can, then both of you will have a lot less financial conflict in your marriage.
Well, and I think about what the Apostle Paul said. He said, hey, I've had times of great abundance. I've also had times where I have been in need. And he said, I've learned, whatever state I'm in, to be content.
Right.
And so contentment goes a long way, and you need contentment wherever you're at financially. Because you think about, and you can study pro athletes, you can study people who win the lottery. A lot of times they're broke after a very little amount of time because they've never learned to be content with where they are.
Yep.
And so don't think that if I just have more money, then that's going to solve all my problems. If you haven't figured out how to be content with no money, you're not going to learn how to be content with money.
Right.
So understanding and practicing that contentment will help with the financial conflict, as Lysander mentioned. So let's talk about what actually makes this work. Because you can have all the goals you want to, but it only becomes shared when both people agree on it.
Yes.
Both people understand why it matters. Like, why are we putting a spending limit? Why are we giving this much? Why are we saving this much? What does this actually accomplish? Both have to be willing to adjust their behavior to support it. So if one person is dragging the other, it's not a shared goal yet. It's a negotiation in progress, or maybe in some cases it's a hostage situation.
Right.
But you've not yet made it a shared goal.
And a lot of times misaligned priorities with regards to finances can create a lot of conflict in marriage.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the conflict is not really about the purchase, but it's about what the purchase represents. It represents spending versus saving, or it represents freedom versus security. Maybe it's giving versus investing, or generosity versus future stability. And these priorities, if they are not discussed, each person interprets the other's behavior as irresponsible or controlling or uncaring or frivolous.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we said we had a shared goal of wanting to travel together, but you have a problem with staying off of Amazon, right? So you're choosing the immediate now versus what we agreed upon would be the long term.
Right. Or like I want a trip to Europe, but you want to build a pool.
Yeah.
Sorry.
One's going to last a lifetime. One's going to be over in a week or two.
With memories that will never fade.
They'll fade for me. I forget things quickly.
Yeah, you do. But anyway, if you are not aligned on these priorities over time, it is going to build resentment and erode trust. Did you hear that?
So let's do this poll.
I don't want to do a poll.
Let's do this poll with our listeners. So if you're watching by YouTube, put the comment there. Wherever you're listening or watching, drop it in the comments.
Vote for me.
What do you think is worth the money more? Do you think a pool that you and your grandkids can spend time in all day, every day, build a lifetime of memories around the pool, hanging out, having a good time, laughing, cooking, eating, all the stuff, connecting, or a couple's European vacation, a month long, backpacking around, seeing all the stuff? Which one do you think is more worth the money?
You're getting me with the grandkids.
So, because that is like one of the major things, right?
I know,
is
me
like
too,
we're
me
stepping
too.
in this next part of our lives. So, I want to know from our listeners, which one would you choose? Which one do you think is worth more bang for your buck wise? That's all I'm asking.
Okay. I almost feel like I'm going to side with you on this poll. I think you've won me over.
Okay, so
what about practically?
Maybe we do have, a little bit of difference. So practical, how can we take some steps to create a unified financial vision? Just talk about grandkids, you'll get her on board.
Yeah.
That's part of my system that works.
A very good system.
But you're going to start simple and structured. So name your values individually. We always encourage you, on your own, just what are your goals?
And write them down. What are your values? What do you value financially? And write it down.
What you want to happen. Which we do this when we do premarital counseling. One of them is on your financial life together. And we have them hey, if somebody gave you 10 grand right now, what are the 5 ways you would spend it or whatever? And they write it down on their own, and then they talk about it. Okay, what's that for you? So
how different are we on this?
Each person should list their top 3 to 5 values, whether that's security, generosity, experiences, legacy, whatever, right? So write yours down. And then you're going to have a conversation to see what theirs look like. How close are you? How far off are you? Where are you the farthest apart? Where are you the closest? You start by where you're the closest, right? And then you work to build off of that. And then you're also going to build a shared vision by asking, what do we want our life to look like in 5, 10, 20 years? What does that look like? And you're beginning the conversation that way.
Now you're going to set the joint goals, okay? And we've already talked about some of these. But some of the examples of your joint goals may be the emergency fund, debt freedom, a giving percentage, retirement target. But when you set these joint goals, you're going to create a plan that reflects both people. It might not be a 50-50 compromise, but aim for mutual buy-in, where both people respect and value this plan. It's good. I agree with this plan. And both should feel representative. We're not bulldozing anybody here, okay? And then schedule regular check-ins. Weekly, maybe it needs to be monthly, depending on how much you guys struggle with finances. Weekly would be better. If you're pretty good about it, then maybe it could be monthly or even quarterly. For Thomas and me, we really only have to check in quarterly. I handle the finances, and then every so often, probably about quarterly, I'll kind of let him in and let him know what's going on and if we're achieving the goals that we wanted and where the goals are.
Or if things come up, then it's we'll have a conversation about it in between time, this thing broke down, or we're having this issue.
Or this child needs help with this.
Yep. So we deal with those as we come up. But one of the things to figure out, and we're just talking about how to figure this out practically, is how do we communicate about money without arguments?
Yeah, this is hard.
It can be really hard for some couples. And I know one of the things Lysandra's talked about in the past is basically the only time she ever heard her parents like argue was when they got together to talk about money.
Yeah.
And but this is where most couples fail. And it's not necessarily in the planning, although, that does cause some extra stress and all that, and can put you in a financially bad place because you just don't have a plan for what to do with your money. But a lot of times it's not in the planning, it's just in the tone.
Yeah.
Like, how are we talking about this?
Like you're criticizing the other person or blaming them or whatever.
Yeah, and so it starts by picking the right time. And we encourage couples to study the book of Esther and just read through that. She was a master of picking the right time, going in the right way, choosing the right words and all that. But picking the right time. You're not during stress or right after a purchase or right after some sort of mistake or some bad thing that's happened.
Not in the store, in line, in front of everybody.
At Target, when she's got a whole shopping full of stuff, and we agreed we weren't going to Target anymore. But use we language instead of you, right? We're on the same team here. So I'm not trying to attack you. It's not you against me. It's us against whatever is keeping us down financially. And so how can we improve this? And you use that kind of language versus you always, or you said you would stop doing X, Y, or Z, and here we are again. So, make it a team language. It's we. And one of the things I encourage you to do is to stay curious, not accusatory. So they're two very different things.
Yes, they are.
Instead of accusing them of this or that, really seek to understand what's going on. Maybe you're asking a question like, what feels important to you about this? And so whether that's, getting coffee out at Starbucks or Dunkin' or whatever, why does this feel like such an important thing to you versus making coffee at home that's going to cost a fraction of the price? And so if you can seek to understand where they're coming from as far as their financial values, that will go a long way in helping you guys work through and get on the same page.
Separate facts from feelings, all right? Numbers are neutral. Numbers don't have feelings. Now, they create feelings in you. Yeah. When the account gets too low, you start to panic. When it gets high, you start to feel comfortable. But it's the interpretation, though, that causes conflict. So agree on rules for discussions. Now, we already encourage everyone to have rules of war whenever you're having a conflict. So hopefully you already have those set up and you know what is and is not allowed when you have heated discussions. But some maybe good rules of war for discussing finances are no interrupting, no bringing up past mistakes unless it is a pattern that is being repeated currently.
Yeah.
No sarcasm, no name calling, no blaming. And if conversations keep escalating, then it's usually a sign that the emotional layer hasn't been addressed. It's not that the budget is wrong. It's that there's an emotional thing. So why? Why do you feel like you need to continue to purchase things? Why does Amazon shopping make you feel better? And getting to the heart of that. And we sometimes encourage people that you need to have maybe personal therapy and get to the heart of why spending makes you feel good.
Yeah.
There's a reason behind that. It's something probably from childhood or earlier development in your life. And then working to figure out how you can find your fulfillment in Jesus, not in Amazon. Or in Jesus, not in going to the store and touching things, putting them in your cart, swiping the card. There is something that happens in people's brain, it's like shopaholics. It's a real thing. Or maybe it's that guy who wants to always drive the newest big truck or SUV or whatever. And why? Why is that important to you to drive in a really nice truck or SUV? Why does it matter for you to have the sports car? Why is this important? There's a reason behind it. Let's look into that and figure that out first.
So we do want to finish by highlighting some biblical principles for stewardship, contentment, and planning. We've been sharing, we are Christians. We're followers of Jesus. We lead church here in Palm Coast, Florida. So this is central to who we are. And we've been kind of highlighting some things all the way along, but just kind of want to reinforce this as we get ready to close this episode, that the Bible teaches that resources are entrusted, they're not owned. Everything that we have has been given to us by God. And so you say, well, I'm the one who worked hard and earned it, or I'm the one who used my intellect. Well, who gave you the physical tools to be able to work that job, or who gave you the intellect and the mind to be able to do that job? That is a gift from God.
It is. And my dad always used to tell us, which I'm so grateful for my upbringing. My dad used to say, 10% is not God's money. It's all God's money. 100% is God's money. This is the part we're giving back to him, but we're stewards of all of it. And if you can shift your mindset from this is my money to this is our responsibility before God, this is his money and he's entrusted it to us, how will we spend it? And we see this in Luke 16:10 and 11. One who is faithful in very little is also faithful in much. One who is dishonest in very little is also dishonest in much. If then you have not been faithful in the unrighteous wealth, who will entrust you to true riches? So how you handle your money reflects deeper character. It says something about who you are. And these small financial decisions that you make matter so much more than you realize.
Yeah.
And I love that Thomas already kind of hit on this verse a little bit, but you cannot expect God to trust you with more if you're not being faithful with what he's given you already.
So literally just start with the small and work from there. We touched on contentment as well. I alluded to these verses in Proverbs 4:11-13. Not that I'm speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. And he says the secret is in Christ, because this verse that is so often taken out of context.
Guilty.
Philippians 4:13, he's talking about contentment here. Whatever the situation, I can be content because I can do all things through him who strengthens me. So we need to emphasize learning to be content regardless of circumstance. And as I mentioned, more money is not going to make you content if you haven't learned how to be content without it. So if you're not content where you are now, you're not going to be content when you have even more.
And just think about having wisdom in your finances. Proverbs 21:5 says, the plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who's hasty comes only to poverty. And so what we need to understand is that planning and being careful leads to abundance, and intentionality does matter. Faith and planning are not opposites. They go hand in hand.
So if you want less stress and more alignment in your marriage, it's time to communicate and build a financial plan that you both believe in.
And if you need a little more information on this, maybe some help that you and your spouse can do together, email us at info@familymeeting.org for a bonus resource entitled Couples Financial Alignment Worksheet, and we can get that over to you.
So as we talked about earlier, your family meeting tonight is just, hey, as a husband and wife, you're going to sit down and talk about what your financial goals are for the future and come up with a plan to do that. And the plan starts, first of all, with coming up with a budget. You have to know how much money you have coming in, how much money you have going out. And then, all right, what are your short-term financial goals? Those 0 to 2 years, what does that look like? And then long-term. 5, 10, 20 years from now, what's the financial goals? What do you want your life to be? And so I encourage you, when it comes to the goals and priorities, kind of write those down on your own. Then you're going to come back together and talk about those things and then figure out and work together to come up with a plan that you both agree on, you're both on board with. This is the direction that we're going. And you're going to review this from time to time. And there's going to be some changes and there's going to be some more give and take, but you're beginning to develop a plan so that you're both going in the same direction financially.
Thanks for joining us today. Please go and subscribe to the Family Meeting podcast from your favorite podcast provider. And if you found this information helpful, please share this episode on social media and invite your friends and family to listen in with you.
To find more content and information Lysandra and I provide, you can go to our website, familymeeting.org. or email us at info@familymeeting.org. If you'd like to shoot us a text or call us, you can send a voice message at 904-257-3062.
And we want to invite you to join us for our next family meeting as we discuss raising kids who will grow up to be good husbands or good wives.
Thanks for joining us today for this family meeting. Have a great week, everybody. This meeting is adjourned. All right, so what about you? When we sit here and you listen to the conversation about shared financial goals, what is the step that you need to take? Is it starting right at the very bottom, laying the foundation of coming up with that budget together and agreeing on the budget? Or is it, hey, we need to figure out our short-term goals, like the emergency fund, the paying off the debt, figuring out what steps to take first? Or what is it that you want your life to be 5, 10, 20 years from now? In order to get there, you have to have the shared financial goals going in the same direction. If you don't know where you're trying to go, you're never going to get there. So put in the comments there, what's the step you need to take? What do you want your life to be? And tell me why the pool is better than a European trip. So with that, we'll see y'all online and in the comments. Have a great week.